So, do you remember when people just argued about like this movie and whether the theatrical cut or the producer's cut was the best version? Times have changed. Today we are going to talk about Halloween Ends, probably the most decisive movie that's ever came out for a Halloween film, and honestly, probably for a slasher sequel altogether because this is a sequel, but it's not totally a slasher. And let's get into that. Try to stay pretty spoiler free for the first portion of this review. Though I am going to be honest with you, it's probably best if you watch the film ahead of time before you watch this review, because I'd like for you to kind of have your own opinion on what you think of the film. It's been mixed, and it's been leaning more towards the negative. So David Gordon Green set out to make a Halloween film, which he expanded into a Halloween trilogy. Now, the first thing that we kind of have to get into here is Halloween 2018 in itself was kind of divisive, and it was not beloved by everyone. Some people actually liked the Laurie is Michael's sister thing that John Carpenter wrote while he was drinking and regretted doing. I was never on that camp of the liking the sister thing, though I did like part two and I like the follow ups pretty much. My least favorite Halloween film, so just to put that out there, is it's probably the Rob Zombie ones because I kind of don't think they grasp what John Carpenter's Halloween was. But then again, they weren't John Carpenter's Halloween; they were Rob Zombie Halloween films, and they weren't made for me. And that's something that took me a while to digest. But after I did, well, I did. The thing about this one here is when Dave Gordon Green went to make Halloween 2018, he made it about Laurie Strode. He made it about her trauma, her PTSD, the way she had handled, or for lack of a better term or phrase, didn't handle what had happened to her on Halloween night in 1978. She internalized it and made it all about her instead of the victims around her. And it literally, in the first film, destroyed a large portion of her life. Now, when Halloween Kills came about, that one again was a decisive film, even much more so than Halloween 2018 was. And some people tend to make the mistake of thinking that Halloween Kills is Michael's movie because there's a high kill rate and it's talking about going back to home, but it's really about the how the town has faced this whole thing and how they're all of a sudden having to face it again, and they're much like Laurie in 2018 aren't doing the best job of it. They're becoming much like Loomis in that they've mythologized this guy, and he is to them he is literally their boogeyman. He is evil, and for good or bad, evil dies tonight. It was said over and over again in the film, and was made fun of quite a bit actually. But it's pretty much just the town doing collectively as a group what Loomis did in the early films. Just watch the beginning of Halloween 2 and get that sequence where basically, hey, if this is another joke, I've been trick or treated to death. You don't know what death is. Loomis just had the fancy accent to make it sound a bit better than the town did. But we're not here to talk about the first two, but you do have to put into context that because Halloween Ends is not about Michael either. In fact, this whole trilogy is not about Michael. It's about how a serial killer, how evil infects, changes, and kind of morphs a town and the people within it. And I don't think that's what people were expecting. Even with the first two films, I don't think that's what people were expecting. And if you had asked me if what I saw was what I'd expected to see in any stretch of the imagination, the answer would be no. I would have honestly said to you that, okay, that's a unique take. See, Halloween Ends isn't Michael's movie. In fact, Michael probably has the least amount of screen time in this film than he has in all three of them. He had definitely a larger screen time in the first and second one, but they've taken the choice to bring in a character by the name of Corey Cunningham. And basically, what happens is that a tragedy happens on Halloween, and Corey is at the center of this tragedy. He is the person most affected by this. And this happens at around the time that Michael Myers disappears. There is a 4-year jump in between this one and Halloween Kills. Michael has disappeared. And for a town that's lived under the specter of a boogeyman for the last so many years, they needed a new one. And because of the tragedy that happened with Corey, in a way, he sort of became the new boogeyman, somebody that was shunned and made fun of, someone that, in a way, I guess you could probably sit around a campfire and tell a story about the babysitter that fill in the blank there. Now, Laurie is different in this film. One of the criticisms that I've seen come up online is basically, why is Laurie less bothered seemingly by the effects of the last film, when it was her friends that died in the first one, and in this one here, basic in Halloween Kills, spoiler alert, it's her daughter that dies, and dozens of other people, like 38, 40, something, somewhere around there. So why isn't she the same PTSD Laurie that she is, that we see in Halloween 2018? She can't be. She doesn't have the choice anymore to be that girl. She has faced her fears and almost defeated them. But more than anything else, she's a grandmother that's now a mom. It's shown in 2018 that she knows all the mistakes that she made with Karen, and she's damn sure trying not to make the same mistakes with Allison. So why isn't she the PTSD like Linda Hamilton style character that she was in 2018? It's been 4 years. She's different. The experiences are different. She's gone past the tragedy that happened in kind of her formative age, and she's had to take on a completely different role, something that she didn't do well the first time, and she's trying to do better with this time. Now, don't get me wrong. It still haunts her, and we do get to see that throughout the film. We get to see how certain town members reacted to her afterwards. Some actually even blaming her for that night 4 years ago when all those people died, because they say she taunted Michael. She brought Michael back. In 2018, she was Halloween. She was certain that Michael was going to come right for her. That Michael wanted to get her. It was a kind of a big shock and a kind of a slap in the face when she finally got to realize Michael didn't even realize who she was. She was just a victim. And realizing that fact, that changed a lot. But now to the town, she's the person that has had to face off against Michael twice whereas she no longer feels like she was a person that was targeted. Members of the town do, and they they show her that. We get a lot of time with the new character who I mentioned before by the name of Corey Cunningham. He's played by Rohan Campbell, and he's a brilliant actor in this. He does a fantastic job. Whether you like the character or not, the actor is really, really good. And we this is for a large part of the film. It's his story because it's his character Corey that's had the tragedy happen to him. It's his character that goes through the journey. I know a lot of people probably expected it to be Laurie's like journey, and we still get Laurie's journey where we are supposed to get it. She has a much larger part in this film than she did in the sequel Halloween Kills. Allison has a little bit less, and I would not be surprised if there wasn't more Allison scenes that'll come out on a 4K disc down the road. I do think, however, that out of all the movies, this is probably the one with the most consistent vision and probably the tightest editing overall. Does that mean it's the best film, though? Does that mean I like it? Well, we'll get into that. One thing I can say right now is when I was watching this movie, I was aware of the fact that it was very divisive online, that a lot of people didn't like it. And oftentimes, I'll go into a film and I'll be like, what do people not like about this? Why do people see it? And I don't get it and I don't understand it. It's kind of like that Pollyanna thing. But the truth of the matter is, I could understand why people would go into this and come out either not satisfied or just not liking the film because it is a very different film. And we also have to take into fact that this is the ending sequence of a trilogy. And with that being said, we're going to get to a little bit of spoiler territory here. Corey Cunningham kind of becomes Michael over time. Sort of. We'll get into that a bit more. See, Corey Cunningham's babysitting at the beginning of the film. And at the beginning of the film, this really bratty little kid plays a really cruel prank on him. Corey kind of has a freak out anxiety attack type thing, and he tries to open the door that the kids locked him into a room. Now we've previously established in a really big and a really nice sweeping shot how the stairs are and how far up they are. So you can kind of see it coming if you really think about it. Maybe not this way, but what happens basically, it's kind of neat. He goes out to get some cake. He decides on the chocolate milk. We see Corey as kind of an innocent soul. Corey Cunningham is definitely a throwback to the Arnie Cunningham of Christine in more ways than one, actually. Anyway, so he gets locked in by this kid. He tries to push and kick the door open. Unfortunately, when he does that, the kid is right behind the door and falls all the way down and does not make it. Corey is, he didn't try it, so he's not convicted of anything, except in the mind of the parents and especially the mother, and in the mind of the town. Myers has gone away, and this it's no longer a killer that's killed babysitters. It's now a babysitter that's accidentally or maybe purposefully, in the minds of some of the townsfolk, a child that is now the new boogeyman. Except he actually really hasn't done anything. We see him get picked on by younger kids than him, actually by high school students. We see him basically get, certain people feel bad for him. We see Corey has a pretty nice kid that's had some bad experiences, but it doesn't stay that way. In the original Halloween, they talk about, well, Loomis talks about the fact that Michael has in his eyes, it's the darkest eyes, the devil's eyes. It's something that haunts Loomis, and it's when Loomis really realizes the eyes and what's behind them, it's when he gives up on Michael and realizes that all he can do is keep him inside and keep him away from people because what he's become is simply and purely evil. And Corey has an experience with some bullies that knock him over a bridge, and there he meets Michael. Michael has been damaged. Let's really face it. What happened in Kills would normally kill an average man several times over. Not to mention the beating from the townsfolk at the end of the film, where he kind of comes back and slaughters them and kills Karen and takes off. But why does he take off? Why has he been gone for 4 years? Some people kind of wonder about that. And my thoughts are that basically he's kind of he's recuperating. He's weak. There's a scene in a movie that I'm not a huge fan of, but I'll reference it here, Freddy versus Jason, where Freddy can't get at the kids from Elm Street anymore. They don't remember him, so they don't fear him. And Freddy lives off of fear. And I think so does Michael. Michael is a boogeyman. He is the boogeyman for this town. When they fear him, when they run away from him, when they scream, when Laurie said he transcends, I think that's kind of what she meant, is basically that he lives off of their fear, but he's damaged now. And the town has a new boogeyman in Corey. They've moved on, but they haven't moved on. They're still affected by him, but maybe not in the way that he'd want. Right now the town isn't so much hating on Myers as they're hating on Corey and, in all honesty, Laurie Strode as well. So he's down and he's weak, and kind of like Freddy, kind of like it, he really has nothing to feed on. We do see a missing poster at the in one sequence of the film, so we know that he's still killing, but he's doing it covertly and not with the strength or the power that he's had before. He grabs Corey and he looks into Corey's eyes or soul, if you want to put it that way, and he sees something. For one, he sees a kid that's not afraid to be killed by him, that's not afraid to die. But in my opinion, he also sees a darkness, something that can be unlocked, something that can help him, that can power him. Corey's faced the worst that you can face. So coming up against Michael, it's really just another. For Corey, it's Tuesday. Every day is a horrible day with one horrible thing after another. The only thing that has been nice about him is earlier in an earlier scene he meets Laurie Strode, and it's very obvious that Allison kind of has a thing for him. She immediately has this like attraction to him, which some people find weird. But you have to take consideration that Allison is kind of a bit of a pariah herself from, being raised by Laurie now and what happened before. Her boyfriend that we know about from the films, Cameron, dies horribly, and the guy that we see afterwards shows that she hasn't been making the greatest relationship decisions. But after Corey sees Michael, after Michael lets him go, after Michael makes a connection with him, because this is what we're getting here, is in Halloween 4, And I think David Gordon Green is a huge fan of the Halloween franchise. I really do, because we get that tease in Halloween 4 of Jamie becoming the next evil. And in Halloween 5, they rein it back and they don't go with it. Halloween Ends is the only time that we've gotten, at least to this point and this far, the actuality of evil being passed on, of evil going one to another, changing shape. Haddonfield needs a boogeyman. And now Corey has the strength to become that boogeyman. Not just by being scared or picked on or having stories told about him, but literally embodying it. Corey starts to murder, and he does so uh, pretty mercilessly. He gets revenge on all the people that picked on him, and there's the thought of like, well, that's not the way Michael did it. Michael kind of did it. He killed his sister. There's no reasoning behind it. Like Corey has like a whole, like there's a revenge arc when it comes to Corey. That's true, but they're not the same character. But Corey is becoming less and less Corey and more outspoken. He stands up for himself. He drives extremely fast to the point where, devil may care on his motorcycle. And Allison becomes more attracted to Corey because of this. And we suddenly wonder, why would Allison be attracted to Corey? He literally looks at her at one point in the movie and he says, I killed someone. Now, he did, and for me watching the film at the time, I took that as basically meaning that he's saying again that someone died in his charge. But the fact is, he kills a lot of someone's within this film. There are some great deaths in this movie, so it's not to the extent of Halloween Kills. We're not getting the firefighter sequence, but there is some really good ones. There's a blowtorch death. There's a there's a few kind of cool deaths within this one. The bullies getting killed, the really jerky, let's see, radio disc jockey getting killed, and we get a kind of a little cameo there from Darcy the Mail Girl. So if you're a fan of of the drive-in show with Last Drive-In, then you're gonna love this. Well, at least that part of it. With that being said, Michael does come back in the last fourth of the film, last 15 minutes or so. We do get a lot more Michael. Michael actually kind of teams up with Corey at a point in this film. And there's one really controversial part where Corey beats Michael and steals his mask. I wasn't sure on that. I'm still not. That's still kind of sinking in because I know what they were going with, but I don't think it completely succeeded. We eventually get Corey taking on Laurie Strode, and then there's the fight at the end with Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It is not as long a fight as you might think would be with the trailer. The trailer does kind of do a bait and switch, but that's okay because it was one of the few times that I've actually gone into a film without knowing a lot about what is going on, actually. For this one here, I was completely wrong, and hopefully so were a lot of people. With that being said, what did I think? So I guess the only thing that left to do was to render my verdict on this film. As a movie overall, I actually really did enjoy this film. I didn't agree with every choice that was made in this film, but I rarely do when it comes to any film. And that includes some of my favorite directors like Argento or Fulci or Franco. But I do have to say that overall, I really, really enjoyed this film for what it was. It does start with a different font than the other films because it goes back to 3. It kind of gives you hints that this is not going to be your typical Halloween film. It's going to base itself almost more in the portmanteau, the anthology range of films. It's blue and it looks very much like Halloween 3. It's setting its flag down in that camp. It's letting you know that you might like it now or you might not, but got a feeling in a few years from now your kids are going to love it. And that's the way it goes. Now, how does it work as a Halloween film itself? Is it a good Halloween film? Does it, like, I guess, check the boxes? We still have a killer in the film. We do have a boogeyman. It's not Michael, but it wasn't Michael in part 3 either, and we're kind of going along that vein because we do get Michael in this one. It's almost like, I don't know if I would it have made people anger if Michael would have been in it, would not have been in this at all, and it turned out that it was Corey and Michael just doesn't come back, and kind of left into ether. Maybe, maybe not. That could have been a choice that could have been made, and honestly, I might have went with that. It would have angered people a lot still, but at least they wouldn't feel that the character Michael had been pretty much shackled from previous films. We'd seen him become, I don't want to say a force of nature, because a force of nature that's a Jason type of thing. That's what Jason is. Michael is he's a stalker. He goes in the shadows. He comes up. He kills. He's relentless, but in a different way. Michael plays with his food, and we don't get to see that from the Michael in this film. One, this Michael is going on over 65, close to 70 years old. We do have a inkling that there may be a supernatural aspect of it, but even the supernatural aspect of it kind of gets muted because he hasn't been able to, I guess the best word is to recharge his fear battery. We'll take that into account. But if somebody looked at me and said, I completely hated this film, or this is not what I wanted from a Halloween film, I get it. I really do. And I couldn't disagree with it. As the third part of a trilogy, I'm not quite sure it's the best way to go. But as the third part of David Gordon Green's trilogy, I can completely see why he went where he went. Michael, this trilogy has never been about Michael. It's been about the effects that he's had on everyone else. In a way, this whole series has been an anthology of films. A Laurie film, a film where Laurie is sidelined and it's about the town, and we get to see like characters from older films, and then we get a third one where a brand new character is introduced. This trilogy wasn't a straightforward trilogy, and there was hints there all along. We were kind of being told that, but for a lot of people, this wasn't what they expected, and for that reason, I completely get it. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I understand, and I see your point. But as the end of a trilogy, ending off Michael Myers' story, yeah, this may not be the best. As the end of Laurie Strode's story, I think it works really well. As the end of David Gordon Green's films, I don't want to say it's expected, because it's not, because nothing about this film is expected. But for me, at least, the film, although slightly flawed, as I thought Halloween Kills was, and even Halloween 2018, which I definitely liked a lot, the more I watched of this film, the more I realized this was probably the way David Gordon Green had always intended this trilogy to end, and it actually makes sense for what we're seeing. We're seeing different sides, different aspects. Michael is the catalyst in all these films. Michael's front and center in the first two. He's not in the third. And I think after time and after people get to watch this a few times, they may be okay with it. They may understand that, again, Michael is still the catalyst in this film. It's just become another film. And if you cannot get behind the character of Corey Cunningham, you may never like this film. And that's okay too. But for me, I did get behind the character of Corey Cunningham. I did enjoy a lot of the choice in the film. I was iffy on the Allison kind of like just kind of falling for him right away. That never really sunk in as completely true to me. I could see why, but I could even see while I was watching this film, because I was enjoying the film, that I was probably giving, you know, making excuses for her liking him as much as she did so quickly. But I'm hoping that a more extended cut will actually explain that a little bit more and a couple of the other things that I wasn't quite sure on. I don't think Michael Myers has been muted or shackled in this film. I think Michael Myers is doing exactly what Michael Myers was supposed to do in this trilogy for this film. In the second film, we had people complaining about Laurie Strode not being in the film hardly at all. Why wasn't Laurie there? And in this one, it was why wasn't Michael there for a large portion of the film? Because that's not the film that they were telling. That's not the story we were telling. And it's not like they didn't tell us ahead of time. We've heard from people that, this is going to piss a lot of people off. This is a much different film than the other two films. It's going in a different direction. We were given like warnings and hints through the process of this film being made, and we took it like kind of, oh yeah, well it'll be something. But no, it was very, very different. For me, that's a good thing. For you, you decide. But did I like Halloween Ends? I do, and I do think that on subsequent rewatchings of the film, I liked it even more. But would I understand if somebody doesn't like Halloween Ends? Completely. Is it a good way to end Halloween? Let's be honest here. This is Halloween. And the truth of the matter is, the boogeyman never truly dies. There's a 50th anniversary coming up, guys. I expect a new movie. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the film, and hopefully you enjoy it, and I'll see you here next time in the Call to Cinema. It wasn't clear. I liked it. And if you want a rating, I'm not going to do Dr. Whiffley and give it like a Corey to Michael or something like that, but I will say for a trilogy by David Gordon Green, with the two previous films in consideration, this is probably truly the only real way this trilogy could have ended. And I like that.